Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, what a day to come kick it with us. We do this every single week, sometimes twice a week. Subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. Links to Twitter, X, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, all of our socials, all available in the show notes of this episode. I am your host, Dino DeCespedes, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
I'm feeling fantastic, buddy. It's a big day in the news. I'm ready to get into it.
Big day, as you alluded to. Very, very excited to get into it. I think we're going to try to cover this pretty much from as many angles as we can. Some ITC oldies but goodies. We'll dust some of those off. We've got some new stuff. We're going to just new ways to kind of parse the 18 that we got and do a little bit of a look ahead to next month's big tournament in Paris. If only we had some sort of tasty beverage that could just kind of grease the wheels a little bit to scoot us into the next part of the show.
Wow, what an interesting thought that is, my good man. I think it is time to get to the football. Glad you're prepared as well. That's a good sound. Nicely done.
To you as well. Cheers.
Cheers to you, sir.
Let's talk some football.
All right, where do you want to start?
Let's talk about the snubs. So I think there's a couple names, maybe some surprise about not being included on the roster. There was a big one for your boys at the ITC. One Supernova, one Lily Yohannes, not included in the final 18, not included in the set of alternates. How'd you feel about that?
Not great, buddy. I think she played her way from her club form to even the limited time that we saw with her on the roster. A player who's capable of being like a number 6 or a number 8, or even maybe moving up and playing kind of like a number 10 or, on the wing in the midfield. Just a multi-talented midfielder like that who you can trust to oftentimes make good decisions, especially when passing the ball, and who has the physicality to play some defense as she's shown in the Champions League. I think that is a versatile midfielder that you would want on your roster. I understand that she is a young player and that she hasn't had a ton of run with this squad. I think she's a worthy addition.
I mean, seeing what she did in that second Korea match after, you were pining for, can we get 15? Can we get 20 minutes for Lily? And then she just detonates on that whole game. It's not the most common occurrence, 20 minutes and you're the player of the match. And then also the story the next day. And not because you're a teenager, you're the story because you were the best player on the field, the most impactful player on the field. Definitely hurt. I think we'll get into it a little bit later on the show, what that means for the actual football, because I think a lot of WOSO Twitter is just sort of like, oh, well, that would have been cool to kind of have the Christian Laettner on the dream team kind of feel to it. But to me, this was not that. This is like a real footballer who I wonder if her skill set will be missing a little bit in this tournament. I hope not, but I kind of feel like there is a world where we're sort of looking around, maybe in the semifinals or in the final, where we're like, I wonder if Yohannes would have made a difference here in this one. But again, we're going to have to see what it looks like when we get there.
Totally agree. So let's think about this because, I think I've shared on this podcast. I met Dino. We worked at a startup together, a little more than 10 years ago now. I know Dino personally as a talented marketing executive and a business person. So let's think about this from like an organizational decision here. What's our range of things that could have taken place inside of U.S. soccer when they're making this call? So I think on the one extreme, it is possible that Yohannes was outright not selected, that Emma Hayes and her decision makers either decided it's not quite her time yet. It could be because of, like we talked about, a lack of run with the other players on the squad. It could be maybe they thought the positional need was not there and they needed to fill other spots. It could be that they just rated 19 field players, 16 on the main roster and 3 alternates ahead of her, and thought that she was not one of those 19 best field players to be on the squad. Or you have the opposite end of the spectrum there, that maybe Yohannes had reasons to turn down an opportunity. Perhaps Lily was not yet ready to commit to possibly cap tying herself to the United States. So maybe she turned down an invitation to be a part of that 18-player roster. Or maybe she was offered the opportunity to be an alternate and she didn't think that would be the best fit for her development. Mm-hmm. There are a range of things that could have happened when this decision was made.
I'm glad you brought that up specifically. So I did a little bit of reporting, reached out to somebody in Lily's camp, and got a little bit of intel for you. So I was able to confirm that Lily was selected as one of the alternates, but not picked for the 18-player roster. When you hear that, there's obviously a decision to make. I think we all know that Lily Yohannes is, as a non-cap-tied player, she is eligible to have the future of her international football played either here for the States or for the Netherlands. Now, got another piece of pretty tasty intel here. So when asked if Lily would have played had she been selected to the 18, the answer to that question was maybe. When asked, with the Euro qualifiers coming up, will Lily test the waters with the Dutch? The answer to that also maybe. So I think reading between the lines there, I think maybe there could have been potentially some disappointment around not making the 18, especially after that performance against South Korea, and ultimately her club form as well, pretty much all year. I don't think anybody that has watched all of these players play in their domestic leagues, in these big time tournaments, or in some of these USWNT warm-ups would have blinked twice at Lily making the squad based on what we saw. So yeah, I got to imagine there was some disappointment there. I know that your boys here at the ITC definitely disappointed. And yeah, I think we just have to kind of play the waiting game and see what it means for their play on the field.
Yeah, I mean, look at you. You got sources, you got information. As we've pointed out, the ITC is a journalistic enterprise. I would not blame any player who has the opportunity to look at two of the world's best programs to try to make an informed decision unless they were blown away by an opportunity. And I will say, let's take a look at what Emma Hayes had said at her press conference. Quote, Lily was a consideration for this roster, but yes, at this moment, Lily has not made a decision about her future. I really do hope she will be part of our future, but at this moment, she was not ready to make that decision, end quote. So from some of your reporting, I think, again, this is a tale as old as time when it comes to international football rosters, that the truth is a little squishy in terms of the way third parties like us can kind of determine what's happened. I think Emma Hayes chose her words very carefully in that press conference on purpose. And needless to say, I trust the reporting of you and the Into the Channel podcast in general. So I will just leave that there in terms of what I think the most truthful telling of what happened is. But I will just say this. Regardless of the end reason why Yohannes is not on this roster, here is what needs to happen. You have a teenager with a skill level, intelligence, physical skills that your federation has a responsibility to present with a real plan as to how that player is going to fit into your future. You should do that for any top prospect, let alone a top prospect who has the opportunity to go play for another footballing power who you might see in the World Cup, just like you saw the Dutch in this past World Cup, just like you've played the Dutch in a World Cup final in 2019. So this is a decision that could reverberate in World Cups for the foreseeable future. You can see how tournaments or just matches especially can turn on one play, one stroke of brilliance. And Yohannes is the type of player who is capable of providing that moment of brilliance. She's already doing it in big matches at 16. So I don't want to go too high on the soapbox here, but if I was a member of U.S. soccer, I would do what I had to do to say, here is a vision for how we see a great young talent with you, not only just thriving in our system, but continuing to build on the skills that you already have. Here's the program. Here's the vision. Here's what we're going to do. And I don't think it's out of bounds for Emma Hayes to make some kind of assurances. And they're not even really difficult assurances to make. Lily, if you continue to play as well as you're playing in your club form, you have a spot on our roster. Would that be a crazy promise to make? I don't think so.
I mean, if she was selected as an alternate for this, this was a World Cup, then obviously she's in. If we understand that she's in that pool of 3 or 4 or 5 alternates. Right. The part that really bugs me, I mean, we as a duo, as a show, discovered Lily Yohannes at the front end of our Champions League coverage, and I think it was just sort of like a, hey, this is cool. Did you know that there was a player, like an American player on this Ajax team? Yeah. To go from that to watch her Champions League journey, watch what she's done in her domestic league, watch what she did, I think she was on the She Believes roster, didn't see the field. Then you get the first South Korea match, no minutes there. Second South Korea match, absolute detonation.
Mhm.
Emma Hayes in this federation couldn't have been in a better position. Like, things could not have gone better, right?
Mhm.
Like, it's an explosion. She's sort of like running the internet, like, you know, for those 2-3 days. And then we kind of dropped the ball. Felt like we had the inside track, we being the United States. The United States had the inside track, no longer have the inside track. It feels a little bit like a toss-up, feels a little bit like a missed opportunity. And that's before we even think about there's an actual tournament to be played with at least one behemoth out there that's going to keep me up a couple nights between now and the end of July. So all in all, it's hard not to look at this as not a missed opportunity.
Yeah, totally agree. Even when we started covering the Women's Champions League, starting at the group stage, we started covering it closely. We always are careful not to heap a ton of pressure on a 16-year-old person. But the potential consequences of missing out on a player like this could really be punitive for the federation and the team as a whole. So I think you're right. I think they lost the inside track, and now, I mean, the players, they just have to put their head down and focus on the football. I don't think that was ever going to be a problem, but I think if you're walking around in the front offices of the federation, you better figure out a way to make this right.
Yeah, I believe that. I want to scoot ahead to my second snub, probably our second snub. I feel comfortable saying that.
Yeah.
Arguably the best player in the NWSL this season. A really strong case could be made. Croix Bethune doesn't make the final 18, makes it on as an alternate. What was your first thought when you saw that bit of news?
I went back to the same saying, and I say it every time. I feel like club form has to matter in these decisions. I get that number 10 spot is a little crowded with Haran and Lavelle, Macario. You could play Shaw there also. I also get that Bethune is an uncapped player and was an alternate in the last set of friendlies. So, you know, I think the decision to play Savannah DeMello in the last World Cup as a previously uncapped player, I think she had 3 caps when she started in the World Cup.
Yeah.
I could understand why that would be tricky, but what's a team that you can think of that you could drop Croix Bethune in and she wouldn't find a way to be successful?
Doesn't exist.
No.
To me, it doesn't exist. I mean, obviously they're different players. We just talked about Lily getting dropped into that Korea match with just as few caps, right? And she doesn't even play in this domestic league, you know, so she's meeting a lot of these people maybe. But to think about Croix Bethune, and, you know, we'll kind of go unit by unit here, but when you think about the midfielders, it really must have come down to Corbin Albert, Rose Lavelle, Kat Macario, Lily Yohannes, Croix Bethune. I think the choice ended up being 3 of these 5. Now, I got to say, you know, we did some brainstorming about what like a Lily Yohannes, Croix Bethune midfield would have looked like, how unstoppable that might have been. It's looking like we might end up with neither if Croix Bethune stays in the alternate pool. And as I thought about, you know, this team, I got to say, I am a little bit worried when you look at that midfield about a potential lack of creativity, maybe a lack of playmaking. Setting aside Sam Coffey, who's going to be, I think, in a more defensive position, you've got 19-year-old Jaden Shaw, 13 NWSL appearances, 3 goals, 1 assist. So she's cooled off a little bit from that super hot USWNT start. Corbin Albert, 27 appearances for PSG in all comps, 0 assists. Lindsay Horan, 3 assists, 22 appearances. Rose Lavelle, she's a genius creator, we know that, 0 assists in 10 NWSL appearances for Gotham. Kat Macario, probably the only player in kind of like assist form. You know, so she had 12 appearances for Chelsea, all competitions, 6 assists across those 12. So recent form, she's been able to distribute, play make, create goals from her position on the field. Now, I think when we play these more disciplined, higher IQ football countries in this tournament, that midfield without a Bethune, without a Yohannes, you know, maybe it's not Rose's day. Maybe she's dealing with like a little calf strain, God forbid. Lindsay Horan, I think she has obviously her strengths, you know, an amazing player with regard to what she does well. But you don't really think of her as that pinging the ball, like just that offensive, creative genius. Right. You know, to essentially just be able to manufacture a goal with her mind. So I don't know, man, like, am I losing it a little bit with regards to just kind of like processing this news and, you know, dealing with some of the disappointment? Or do you think there's any validity to, you know, is our midfield going to be creative enough against those absolute giants in that tournament?
It's a great question. I think it's a super valid question. I think you wonder what Jenna Neiswanger is going to be able to bring from the defense.
Mm,
I think you get some creativity there. I think depending on where you play Crystal Dunn has an ability to, whether she's playing at right back or right wing or on the left, like close your eyes and just do a circle and then point to a spot on a football field. You could play Crystal Dunn there. I think Dunn has an amazing ability to get people to ping the ball around. I think she has that chemistry with Haran that kind of makes Haran go, okay, yeah, 1-2 right here. Like this is like we can play fast, we can make quick decisions. But I think overall, I think your point is correct that this midfield, with a lack of creation, a team like Spain that is so smart and so
mm.
organized in defense, a team like France who has Wendy Renard and Sakina Karshawi and Elisa de Almeida, they'll smother you. They can figure out where the ball will go if you are not playing with like an effervescence and a level of creativity. And so when you go against those world powers, I think you might be in a little bit of trouble.
We talked about more in reference to Barcelona, which is loosely almost the same team as the Spanish national team.
Pretty close.
We talked about their ability to not only take away like the first pat, like the first outlet, but like the second outlet and most of the times the third outlet. They were really going to make, they were only going to get beat by some non-traditional runs or passes that were a little bit tough to see, or like a fourth, it's like almost like a quarterback where they make you go through all the reads and the only thing that they leave you with is like the full back and the flat. And then you throw it to him and it knocks off his face mask and then you got to punt. One more snub, maybe borderline snub, got to be mentioned. The great Alex Morgan. Quick salute to Alex Morgan, obviously USWNT legend, probably on the Mount Rushmore greatest American players of all time. That's an easy argument to make for sure. Tremendous career. But glad she didn't make the team.
Okay.
I think the form hasn't quite been there. We saw a little bit of a rocky World Cup last summer and seen some moments, seen some flashes, but we've talked about the roster limit a ton. So I wasn't too disappointed, I'll say. We're also loaded, in those attacking spots. We're going to go unit by unit, kind of like dive in there, but just wanted to give Alex Morgan a quick shout out.
Got to. But like you said, one of the greatest players in the history of the program. That's a hard Mount Rushmore to crack, by the way. But like you said, she has an absolute legitimate argument to crack it. I think that says it all right there. Like you said, we're going to talk about each unit, but the named forwards, Crystal Dunn, Trinity Rodman, Jaden Shaw, Sophia Smith, Mallory Swanson, in 2024, who do you take Alex Morgan over in that group? I don't think there's a player.
Yeah, I wouldn't say not a player, not considering current form.
Yeah.
You could look at Crystal Dunn, but to your earlier point, so versatile, player anywhere. And I think you think about the roster limitations, that's an incredibly valuable player type to include. Exactly. So yeah, tough to make an argument for any of those players giving up that spot for Alex Morgan.
Let's hear from the legend herself as she posted on Twitter, quote, "Today I'm disappointed about not having the opportunity to represent our country on the Olympic stage. This will always be a tournament that is close to my heart, and I take immense pride anytime I put on the crest. In less than a month, I look forward to supporting this team and cheering them on alongside the rest of our country. LFG." End quote. Classy response from her. It's the right response from her. She's a leader in the squad. We've talked about that for a while. It's who she is. Like you said, salute to Alex Morgan, forever a legend. She'll get her retirement tour. She'll get her last matches with the U.S. women's national team, wherever they come, and people will come out and they'll sell out that stadium and they'll celebrate her as they should.
100% well-deserved and super classy. Wouldn't expect anything less from the legend. Let's go unit by unit. I want to go back to front. Talk a little bit about who's in, who's not in, what we think that unit's going to be capable of producing, and maybe what some of the shortcomings might be, something to keep an eye on. I think it's going to give us a good chance to really kind of talk through who made that final list. Let's start with the goalkeepers.
So we have Alyssa Nair of the Chicago Red Stars and Casey Murphy of the North Carolina Courage.
Mm-hmm.
Par for the course. Is the U.S. women's national team playing football? Yes. Is Alyssa Nair healthy? Yes. Alyssa Nair is goalkeeper 1. Casey Murphy is an excellent goalkeeper. Jane Campbell is an excellent goalkeeper, and she is listed on the alternates. I think you could make an argument maybe for Campbell over Murphy, depending on who you like and what style you like. But This is sewn up from Jump Street. You watch Alyssa Nair play, she's the starting goalkeeper for the U.S. women's national team, and you never know when you might need to go into penalties in a tournament. So, gotta have her on the roster.
Yep. And you already know if we do go to penalties, we're already up 1-0 because
pretty much
Nair's gonna blast one in addition to denying 2, 3, maybe 4, who knows.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have a little fun with the roster. So let's also kind of pick a starting unit as we go. So you already mentioned goalkeeper Alyssa Nair. She's penciled in, penned in, sharpied in, however you want to do that, as our keeper. So let's talk defenders.
All right, left back. I don't think there's any real difficult decision here. I think it's Jenna Neiswanger. I'm going to go ahead and try to get the nickname off. I think Neiswanger is from Huntington Beach, California. What do you think about the nickname California Carmona? If Olga Carmona was born in California in the United States, I believe that player would be Jenna Neiswanger. So I'm going to put Neiswanger starting at left back.
I like that. She's also a Florida State Seminole. So maybe she could be a Seminola Batier.
Oh, there you go.
We have some fun here. If we're talking defenders, if we're talking U.S. Women's National Team, I've got the Sharpie here on deck.
There we go.
I'm going to go Naomi Girma. I don't even know really what else we need to say here. Tremendous defender, tremendous passer, tremendous settler down of things when things are getting a little too heated. So Girma's got to be in that starting lineup. I can't imagine there would be a scenario where you wouldn't start Girma outside of injury. Absolute lock. Glad to see her on the team. I don't think there was ever going to be any doubt about that. So we've got 2 spots sewn up.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's think about Girma's center back partner, who I think has looked really good next to Girma in certain situations. I already selected Jenna Neiswanger from Gotham FC. Let's just double up. Tierna Davidson, also from Gotham FC, and has proved herself to be an intelligent partner with Girma in the center back position. I think if you're playing 4 in the back, I feel like it's settled. And personally, I wanted to say Davidson to do the Gotham synergy from the 2 picks that I have. I think the next player that you might name, not to spoil it, might play for a club that you care about in some ways.
Absolutely right. And that is my Gunners. Emily Fox, right back. I mean, she's rock solid as well, and also pretty dynamic offensively. You know, she gets up the field really, really quickly, really smart player. Physically, I think she's kind of like a sneaky great athlete too.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like when you watch her turn the heat down, turn the volume down on some of the attacks that she faces. Just a cool player to have out there in this type of tournament. So I'm glad she made it. So we will pencil those in. Fox, Girma, Davidson, Neiswanger as our ITC starting 4. A couple other names to hit. We recorded that preview show, I think a couple months back, that Olympic roster draft that we did.
Yep.
So we had Sonnet on our list. Casey Kruger we did not have on our list. That was one of the 2 that we missed. What do we need to know about Kruger and Sonnet?
We'll say it again. Club form matters. I think Casey Kruger has just been absolute dynamite for Washington Spirit this year. She was listed in that episode. Anybody wants to go back and check the tapes. I think that's one of our most watched episodes, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Casey Kruger was one of my first cuts. She was one of the toughest cuts that I had because I love her versatility. She started that play in the Spirit's last match against Gotham where she is just sprinting upfield to get the ball over to Bethune to eventually lead to the goal. Kruger has great instincts, great physicality, and she can get up the field for you when you need from the right back spot. And her age and maturity, I am less worried about because we have such a deep defender roster. I think that she should be just fine, and she is well deserved in this position.
She's one of these players that advanced age, I think we're okay saying that, but she can still fly.
Yep.
She can still absolutely cook when she sees something. So ultimately, if she can still, scorch defenders like that and make the right plays, make the right passes, I don't think age is really any kind of factor here. She's also kind of like rock solid health-wise. So I think that was a great call getting her on. And I think it's safe to say her play, I don't want to say that maybe it elevated, but she's been playing at a very, very high level since our Olympic show. So I think if we would have run that back, I think it's probably a different conversation. I think we had Eva Gaetino in that spot who was probably having a moment. But yeah, Casey Kruger, one of those first names that we called out for our toughest cuts.
Yep.
Any defenders that you were surprised not to see on the list? Obviously Sam Staub got a little bit of run in some of these warm-up type matches. Abby Dahlkemper, I think, was loosely kind of in the conversation as well.
Yep.
Any surprises there?
I think it came down to Staub and Kruger, likely, just because Emily Sonnet's versatility, where you could play her at defensive mid or center back if you need. I think Sonnet was probably a lock, her experience, her leadership. So I think it was probably between Staub and Kruger. And I think maybe there's a little bit of duplication between what Staub can give you and what Davidson can give you. And that may have been the tiebreaker. You could just station Kruger out there at right back and you'll be A-okay. So I think that's probably the nod, but it doesn't take anything away from what Sam Staub has been able to accomplish this season. Great run. She'll have another look at the national team the next time they're picking them. I'm certain of it.
Yeah, super well deserved too. Yeah, I think we landed on the right 6 defenders. Let's shift gears to the midfield. So we talked a little bit about that when we talked about our couple biggest snubs, Lily, Croix Bethune. Let's pick our starters here. So kick us off with who you think needs to be sharpied in to this U.S. Women's National Team midfield.
I know you got your Sharpie over there, buddy. You know I keep one on deck myself. Sam Coffey in the defensive midfield has to be there. The creativity, the chemistry with Lindsay Horan that we've seen, the chemistry, frankly, with Naomi Girma that we've seen. She's a player that can play physical, can get forward when you need, but is really just going to be a defensive stalwart back there. No brainer for me.
Makes sense. I'm going to take the easy road here and leave you with the hard pick. Give me Lindsay Horan in the midfield. We talked about that Horan Coffey pairing and them just going straight bulldog on these teams, just harassing and let's win the ball back ASAP. I kind of like that new spot for Lindsay Horan, like a little deeper, a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more defensive, get the ball upfield to some of those more dynamic runners and players. I think Horan's probably penciled in as a starter as well on my end.
Yeah, for sure. I think she might be stronger than pencil. I think she'll wear the captain's armband when you send her out there. I mean, and when Horan comes off, you give the armband to Girma. Okay, can we agree on this? We're likely to play a 4-2-3-1.
Yes.
So we have our 4 defenders. We have Coffey, who will be one of the defensive midfielders. And then you have Horan. Are you envisioning Horan as the other defensive midfielder?
I actually am. Yeah.
I love that.
We obviously watched a ton of Lyon this year, Champions League. Where she was the most dangerous was kind of in the midfield, more in defensive postures, just making it difficult, winning balls back, moving the ball upfield. She obviously had her moments where, she's more in attacking spaces, but she can do that where other midfielders can't necessarily do that. She's so good.
Yep.
So I think you just want to utilize that. And especially if we're going 4-2-3-1, that makes a ton of sense. Pair her up with Sam Coffey a little bit deeper.
And that pairing looked great in that first matchup against South Korea. Understanding the level of competition there, but I think you're spot on. If you play Horan a little deeper, she can get forward on set pieces, corner kicks, things like that. She can also help kind of drive the offense, kind of help create some space for your attacking players up there when needed. I think that'll suit her just fine. Okay, so let's think about our 3 across. So this will be an easy pick for me. On the left wing, you play Sophia Smith there. No doubt about it.
No doubt about it. My MVP pick, she's definitely in that top 2 or 3 MVP conversation at NWSL. She's absolutely cooking. Scored another goal for Portland from distance. She's obviously racking up assists left and right this season. I am definitely envisioning a different Sophie Smith this tournament than we saw in the World Cup. Smith might be the player that looks the most different from the World Cup. I think I want to put a little half a take chip on that.
Ooh, nice.
I'll go on the right side. A little bit of a cheat here as well. Dust off the old Sharpie here, pop the top, and we'll go a little Trinity Rodman. And I think she's an absolute lock in that spot.
Yeah, I mean, what's not to like? I've loved her chemistry with Emily Fox on that right-hand side also. Now you just have 2. You talk about Fox's physicality, which is such a great point by you. I know we talked about it when I was over there, and I watched Arsenal take on Manchester City, and Emily Fox was just engaged in a wrestling match with Lauren Hemp for 70 minutes while she was on the field. You're going to get that from Fox. And now you put Rodman on that right side. When Fox makes those forward runs and she's trying to create some mismatches and create some player advantages up there, Rodman will just sprint back on defense if you need her to. Rodman's service into the attacking penalty area, her smarts and her kind of ability to like pull back and then kick it back to Fox, who then can play it to Horan, and you can kind of reset from there. You're totally right. Rodman is a no-brainer. So let me ask you this. For our number 10, for the center attacking midfielder here, are we doing who we would put in or who we believe Emma Hayes is going to put in that spot?
Let's go who we would put in.
I'm still a Jaden Shaw true believer. I know she's young. I just feel like she's been put in a tricky situation at times with the San Diego Wave. Obviously, with the addition of Maria Sanchez, the Wave have been able to put Shaw a little more centrally. She needs more time. She's a dynamic player. She's a brilliant player. She has great pace. She can pass. Will she be the absolute central hub of your offense? Probably not. But when you have Horan in that position and you have Smith and Rodman on the ends and you have Neiswanger contributing to that, I still just count me as, like I said, a Jaden Shaw true believer. Put her at number 10. Let her cook, and let's see how she does.
I like it. And I appreciate you taking the tougher challenge of that number 10 spot. See who's going to go there. All right, so Shaw's in our 11, and then up front, got to go Mal Swanson.
Have to.
I think she's just having an unbelievable year. Her A++ is as good or better than anybody else's A++. Like when she's on and she's making a play or making plays, plural, I mean, she's just a marvel to watch. And I think she just can hit heights that you just don't see other players hit. So I think she's got to be there as well. We actually landed on the exact 11 that I had written in my handy dandy notebook, which also doubles as the ITC record book.
Excellent.
Let's talk about a couple of those players. Actually, we didn't mention a couple in the midfield. So I want to rewind back a little bit. Rose Lavelle, Corbin Albert, what do you see as their roles on the team? And obviously we hit the snubs already. I don't know if we have any snubs above and beyond what we already did, but anything to note with regard to what you're expecting from a Lavelle or Corbin Albert?
I think you nailed it earlier when you talked about Lavelle. I think if you're in a group stage match and you need to play Lavelle at number 10 instead of Jaden Shaw, if Shaw gives you a really tough 90, let me just couch it by saying this. The reason I asked, is this who we're putting in or who we think Emma Hayes is going to put in, is because I'm pretty sure Kat Macario is going to play in that number 10 role. I mean, if we're just being honest with ourselves, and you brought up her assist numbers. Kat Macario is a brilliant player. I do not mean any shade to her in any way. I am in the tank for Jaden Shaw. I think her speed and her intelligence is fantastic, and I want to see her develop more. And how are you going to develop her more? Play her in the big spots and let her cook. But I do think Macario will be there. And if Macario needs some rest, you could absolutely play Lavelle in that number 10 spot. But where I most likely see Lavelle is a super sub in the second half to give you 30 minutes, to give you 25 minutes if she needs to. If things are going really south, she can give you 45. You just bring her in after the half. So, I think that kind of rotation of Shaw, Macario, Lavelle, I think that's what we're probably in for in the center of the field.
That makes a lot of sense. I could definitely see Macario starting. Obviously, the Chelsea connection there has got to be strong with her and Emma Hayes. Switching gears back to the forwards, the one player left that is on the roster didn't make our starting 11, but obviously I'm sure he's going to see a ton of the field. Crystal Dunn. Yep. You talked about her a little bit earlier. What do you think her role is going to be on this squad?
I think it'd be really interesting when you are playing some teams that are just going to be, play that European style of football. They're going to be real physical with Trinity Rodman. And, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Crystal Dunn play some right wing in this setup. I wouldn't be surprised if you have some players getting physical with Jenna Neiswanger. You could play Crystal Dunn at left back also. I think you could play Crystal Dunn if you want to set up in a more traditional 4-3-3 or even a 3-4-3, depending on what the situation calls for. You could play Crystal Dunn at right midfield if you need to. So the pivot points of Dunn and Sonnet's versatility, and frankly, alongside with Macario and Shaw, of like, okay, where are you going to be in the attack, or do we need to float you a little further back in the field and kind of have a more of a defensive posture? It's an easy bet to say we see Crystal Dunn play both at the forward spot and as a defender in this tournament.
Wow. Yeah, I think she's just an extremely valuable piece. The 18 players really just does make it interesting because it's like you really have to be thinking through all these different scenarios. You mentioned something that's kind of been knocking around my head since you said it, when you were talking about Jaden Shaw maybe not necessarily being a central hub of the offense. Central hub of the offense, you look that up in the dictionary, picture of Croix Bethune.
That's true.
With regard to like that type of persona. Does this U.S. roster have that profile of a player? Central hub of the offense. It's the person that you always kind of look for. Obviously, Lily Yohannes has that profile. Croix Bethune also has that profile. It does kind of feel like the roster that's been put together is maybe missing that. Maybe that is a little bit of a hint as to what kind of style we want to play. We talked about like the Orlando Pride last week, where it just felt like, okay, they've got 8 players that are going forward, and the goal can come from any combination of any 2 or any 3, or maybe 1 if there's like a turnover in a bad spot. It does feel like the way that this roster is constructed is a little bit along those lines. Like, let's get smart, fast, physical attacking players that can make quick decisions, like you were talking about Haran and Dunn earlier, that can just run, ping the ball, fire the ball, and like we'll live with 18, 20, 23, 24 shots. And maybe possession, I don't know, is that such a big deal? It doesn't feel like with this roster, that sort of European possession style that we're talking to Leanne Sanderson about too, it doesn't feel like this is the exact roster for that type of vision.
I think you're totally right, man. I think without Bethune, I think it's harder to play that kind of style. But I always kind of jokingly point out that you and I have not yet been signed to a coaching staff. So I do think perhaps, go out on a limb on this one, Emma Hayes knows a little bit more about football than us. And maybe she would just look at both of us and say, that's what I have Kat Macario for. That's why I signed her to Chelsea Football Club. That's who she is. And that's what she's going to prove to everybody. So if I could just kind of go off on my own like mini topic here, in terms of the player I'm most excited to see how they're used, number 1 with a bullet is Kat Macario, because I think that Emma Hayes has a vision for her that we do not yet see. And now it is a matter of, did we not see her in that vision because we want to see a player more of the profile of Bethune fill that void? Or, and I know this would sound crazy to everybody who watches the show, perhaps Emma Hayes knows better than us.
Yeah, I'm not ready to say that just
yet. Can't be, no.
I mean, that could very well be the case. Let's juxtapose Shaw and Macario.
Sure.
I think over the last 12 months, for the U.S. Women's National Team wearing that jersey, Shaw's been a more impactful player. Does that mean she's a better player? Who knows? Does that mean she's going to play better in the Olympics? Who knows? But I think Macario, we're still kind of waiting to see it post-injury.
Yes.
For this U.S. team, right? So I think we're all hoping to see it. And to your point, maybe no better coach, no better manager than Emma Hayes to construct a scenario, a situation where Macario can actually shine and really be, a real linchpin for this team. Because now if you've got her in that spot and you've got her vision, you've got Smith, you've got Rodman, you've got Swanson, maybe other players kind of streaking through, a Nice Wong or a Fox who likes to, they both like to kind of creep up. That could be the recipe. And I think, to your point, absolutely on the board, super duper live that Emma Hayes got some stuff up her sleeve.
So folks can please chime in and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Kat Macario returned from injury. I believe it was the March 3rd match against Leicester City, where she scored a goal in the 18 minutes that she played in that match. It looks like she appeared in another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 matches in league play. In that time, in those 7 matches that she played in, she had the 1 goal in the first match she returned and 5 assists in the WSL. A tough league. So it was 1 goal, 5 assists in 4 matches started in a total of 8 matches played, 358 total minutes. So she was able to make a pretty quick impact upon her return there in the WSL. But I think you're right. I think what Hayes is banking on here is this is just the tip of the iceberg. She's not even all the way back yet. The date you come back is not the date you're in your full prime again.
No way.
So
yeah.
I think she's very clearly counting on that. That's what makes me so excited to see how it looks when she's on the field.
100%. I think I agree with you. Emma Hayes got some up her sleeve. I think I agree with you that Emma Hayes will start Macario in that number 10 spot and give her those 3 attacking players to pick out. I want to fast forward here. I know it's early. I know we only got this roster news a few hours ago. It's been a crazy day at one of our ITC headquarters satellite offices, Florida division.
Nice.
I want to make some predictions. I want to do a little look ahead.
Sure.
I want to look at the field. This is early. I understand way, way, way too early, but I want to start projecting forward again against some of these big dogs in the tournament and kind of see how we feel. My first question, we'll just kind of cut right to the chase. Spain. Can this team beat them? Has this team been constructed in such a way that you feel confident that this team can get past a Spain?
I don't think there's a team in the world that I would say I feel confident who could get past Spain in a semifinal or a final. They're the best team in the world. They won the World Cup. They beat the Lionesses in that World Cup final. I wish it was a little closer in that final. We played them well. I mean, I'm just going full we here. I think people who watch this podcast know I'm an England supporter. I thought the Lionesses were going to win the World Cup from the start of the tournament. We had a great team. We have a great manager. And we went up against Spain, and it's just like, God, what do you do against this team? They're just so smart. They're physical. They're more skilled than you are. They have a great goalkeeper. They have the single best player in the world. They might have the third and fourth and the fifth best player in the world also. I think it would be crazy to feel confident that any team could beat them, but is it on the board? That's why they play the games.
I gotta say, this was a weird feeling, and I always like to try to keep it really real. I'm not here to just throw out takes willy-nilly, just for the clicks or the views or the watch hours. I'm not really, playing that game.
Of course.
But I gotta say, no Yohannes, no Bethune made me less enthusiastic about challenging Spain. Just flat out. Like those players, their ability to receive the ball, pivot, make a smart pass, make a quick pass, make a long pass, and put it on the money. Those are the skills that you need against the Spain because, like we talked about, they'll take away your first outlet, they'll take away your second outlet, and most of the time, they've got to beat on the third outlet. Mm-hmm. So you've got to be crisp with regard to your precision, your decision making, and really like your ball skills. Loose touch, like they will gobble that shit up like immediately, instantaneously. That ball's gone. We obviously covered the World Cup last summer. So we got familiar with these players, but obviously like a full Champions League cycle. I just want to name some dudes or dudettes that play for the Spanish national team. So it made the news today. Batri, she returned to the Spanish national team almost 2 years after first declaring herself unavailable with the whole sort of Spanish Football Federation foolishness that was going on there. Obviously they've done a lot of work to kind of try to clean things up. Still a lot of work to do for sure, but she's back. And she'll be joining Salma Pariuelo, Aitana Bonmati, Olga Carmona, Mariana Caldente, Ona Batie, Irene Paredes, Alexia Putellas, Jenny Hermoso, Gatacoy, Esther Gonzalez, Alba Redondo, Atenea del Castillo from Real Madrid, Teresa Aballera, Claudia Zornosa, Leia Codina, Ivana Andres.
Jesus.
There's
a lot of good players, man. There's a lot of great players.
I wasn't counting. Maybe we'll just do the dings in the edit, but I feel like I named 18 players, right? They're just like 18 all-stars.
Good God.
That they've got. And the key is they play the same brand of football. They're all in the same wavelength. They all know what they're doing. There's a chemistry and a synergy and a synchronicity to their game that you look at this U.S. roster, I kind of feel like things have to break the U.S.'s way for them to kind of take home the gold medal here, even with this super stacked 18 that MA's put together.
I mean, you list off those players. I just don't know how anybody's going to be able to beat them. And I realize, no team is invincible. But we saw the way France looked against Spain in the Nations League final. Mm-hmm. And France, you could rattle off their roster too, just like you rattle off the names on Team USA's roster. And they're stacked, and they couldn't do anything against Spain in that Nations League final. Everything was way wide. They couldn't get anybody into any kind of space where they were really threatening on goal, and they were just suffocated throughout the match. I think, Spanish football, you think about a level of creativity and you think about the passing, but you have such an organized defense back there. Yep. And an organized defense that not only shuts you down, but when you talk about they have the ability to take away all of your outlets, somehow they're able to take away all of your outlets, and then they always have one outlet that you're like, oh no, over there, and you can't get to it. And they turn defense into offense so quickly. I am very, very, very interested to see how they line up in their group stage matches. And it's not going to be easy for Spain. As great of a team as they are, as an overwhelming favorite as I believe they are, in their group, they have Japan, Brazil, and Nigeria. None of those three teams are going to make it easy on them. None of them are going to let them off the hook. They're going to play physical. Japan is going to be extremely organized. We saw Japan blast Spain 4-0 in their only loss in the 2023 World Cup.
Yeah.
So you know Spain is going to be way up for that match. I mean, we are just in for an all-timer, and now we're looking at Spain. How much of an all-timer are you? Are you going to be like the Spanish men's team that won that 2008 Euro, the 2010 World Cup, and the 2012 Euro? Can you put yourself in that stratosphere? They can see it. I know they can feel that they can do it. It's just a matter of getting it done.
I think I agree with that. Last I checked, the U.S. is actually the betting favorite. So they're sitting at plus 175, Spain's at plus 200, France plus 450. Japan, to your point, being a tough squad, they're the fourth lowest odds, plus 750 to win this tournament. So Spain's going to have their work cut out for them. But to your point, they are the best team in the world. It's so funny because we got Spain, France in the Nations League final. We got Barcelona, Lyon in the Champions League final. In both of those matches, the French sides couldn't hold the ball.
Yeah.
And they had wild attacking players. You know, you look at France, Cascarino, Diani, Katoto. You look at Lyon, the same Cascarino, Diani, and then who did they have? Dumornay in the middle.
Yeah.
And Agarola in the midfield. They had, Basha running up the left. So, like, they had real attacking options. Barcelona and Spain, however you want to look at it, made them look like the JV team.
Right.
There was a level of surprise with the Nations League, and then there was a bigger level of surprise when we saw almost the exact same outcome in the Champions League final. So the last thing I'll say about the Spanish side is you're not going to beat them on pure physicality. You're not just going to be able to kick it over the top, run onto it, or Trinity Rodman's just not going to be able to run past whoever they've got there, Battier or Carmona or whoever, because they're so smart that they'll just take away your angle.
Right.
They'll just say, hey, I'm not going to give you the edge. I'm going to take away the sideline. I'm going to force you back inside, and Paredes is going to step up.
Yep.
Or Battier is going to step up, or Carmona is going to step up, or any of those midfield players that love to mix it up defensively as well. So it's going to be interesting to see. Emma Hayes obviously saw that Barcelona side up close in the back-to-back Champions League semifinals. So she got a good look at a lot of these Spanish players, and obviously has her finger on the pulse of what's happening in Europe. That's, I think, one of the reasons why we're so excited. I know you like to kind of put your pep hat on and, start thinking formations and, some of these matchups and, start playing a little bit of that. Is there an area where you think the U.S. might have an advantage or somewhere on the Spain side where they could be exploited?
Did the Spanish team announce their roster?
They haven't announced their roster, but you can see, I think, the 24, 25 players that they have in camp. So of the players that I mentioned, all those players that I mentioned are in camp.
Did you mention Mappy? Is Mappy Leon going to play?
I think it's still TBD.
Okay. Because, buddy, it might be right up the middle of the field. If Mappy's not there, then maybe you got a shot there. And like you've talked about Mal Swanson, you and I are firmly entrenched in the Mallory Swanson fan club. If you can work the ball from Niswanger, maybe into Macario, try to create some mismatches there, try to get the ball to Swanson. I mean, maybe you have Smith running in there and she draws some attention and she dishes it to Swanson. Middle of the field might be your best bet. I mean, but like you talked about, you still got Paredes in there. You're going to have Andres in there if you don't have Mappy in there. And then, you're going to have Aitana Bonmati lurking to take the ball off you if you're not paying close attention. Mm-hmm. And it might even be Patry or Alexia back there who can track back on defense or just be in the right position and take the ball off you. But I'll be real interested to see the potential for a Rodman-Carmona matchup. You got to explore that. I mean, Emma Hayes isn't going to be afraid to try to go to that. Trinity Rodman, for damn sure, is not going to be afraid to match up with anybody in the world. She'll like her chances. If I had to put on the pep hat, as you know I'm one to do, I would wonder, where can we find joy in the middle of the field?
I like that. Yeah, and I hate to kind of go back to the snub piece, but it would be really nice to have Bethune there.
Certainly. Or
Yohannes there, that you could just get the ball and it's going to get pinged right in the right direction to kind of keep it moving. Because we've talked about this in the NWSL too. Like, the chances, because of the physicality in that league, the chances fizzle very, very quickly. I think against the Spain side, it's the same. They're just smothering. And, Lindsey Horan, who we had penned in, borderline sharpied into our starting lineup, we saw her struggle against that Barcelona side and not really be able to make an impact. So it is a little scary. Well, let me backtrack and say, I think it's going to be really, really exciting if we get to see these two teams lock up. That's just some real championship football being played. And I'm going to be excited to see that.
Hell yeah. I mean, there's just between these groups, let's just go over real quick. Group A, Canada, Colombia, France, New Zealand. Group B, Australia, Germany, USA, Zambia. Group C, as we mentioned, Brazil, Japan, Nigeria, Spain. Bangers all up and down the slate. I mean, tell me you're not in to watch USA, Zambia or USA, Germany, USA, Australia, just to be able to get the opportunity to maybe see them match up against Japan, Spain, France, Colombia, Canada. This is just going to be a banger all the way throughout.
I think also with the quick turnarounds, the short rosters, I think we're going to see upsets pretty much up and down the bracket. We're going to be surprised by which teams make it out of the group stage. I would say any of those 12 teams, minus maybe, I don't know, like a New Zealand against like a Spain. It kind of feels like any result is in play.
Yeah. Totally fair. And it's a great point about the quick turnaround. It's going to be very interesting to see how these managers are rotating the squads, how the substitution patterns look. So while like in the traditional football calendar, the Olympics is kind of looked at as an afterthought, I think women's football has done a great job of making this a massive tournament with the very best teams in the world, save Great Britain, but with all of the rest of the greatest teams in the world that you just have to get excited about. Like you said, any result is possible in pretty much any of these matches.
Absolutely. All right, man. I think we thoroughly covered. Well, actually, really quick prediction: this U.S. women's national team. Do we medal? What kind of medal is that medal made out of? Is this kind of like a ring the alarm type catastrophe with a group stage exit? What's your official way too early prediction for this U.S. women's national team?
2-beer show. Got to do it.
Ayo.
Too thirsty. Got too excited for this for this tournament. Let's just crack that. I think USA. I mean, I guess we got to think about like where the draw ends up. Let's do some quick maths here. All right, so USA is in Group B. Let's go through the thought exercise. Can USA win Group B with Australia, Germany, and Zambia?
Yes. Let's put them as the winners of Group B. Germany's plus 1,000 to win the tournament. USA's plus 175. That's a pretty hefty spread between those two.
Okay, so 1B in the knockout stage is going to play the second place team in Group C. So who do we think is going to finish second in Group C? That group is Brazil, Japan, Nigeria, and Spain. I feel comfortable saying Spain is likely going to win that group. Mm-hmm. We like Brazil. We love Japan. We love the Super Falcons out of Nigeria. Who do you got coming second place in Group C?
I think it's got to be Japan. I mean, Brazil's got great players. I think internationally they just haven't been able to put it all the way together for whatever reason. So give me Japan.
Okay.
Second place finishers.
Man, that is a tough draw for the USA coming out of the group, man. I think
Wow, quarterfinal exit?
I mean, that would be disappointing, I think, even though, I mean, you got to really think, like, is losing to Japan that disappointing? Let's say they make it past Japan. Let's say they're able to use the physicality. They're able to win some set pieces, and they're able to get it through. They would then play the winner of the second place team from Group A and the second place team from Group B. What are you thinking? Probably Germany? I don't know. You got the Copper Queens in there.
Let's say Germany.
All right. So that one's going to end up being Germany versus the second place team from Group A. What do you say in Group A? Maybe Canada France probably wins Group A at home in Paris. Who do you like between Canada, Colombia, and New Zealand?
I think Canada's been coming on, but I think Colombia. I think if Ramirez is right, I think Colombia would have what it takes to maybe outduel Canada, take that second spot. So Germany, Colombia, is that the...
Yeah.
Jeez.
Okay, Germany versus Colombia. That sounds familiar. Oh, yes. These teams met in the World Cup group stage where Linda Caicedo scored an absolute banger in the 52nd minute. And then Venegas scores in 90 plus 7 to defeat Germany. So now you ask yourself, do we have a revenge game for Germany over in Europe? Or do we have Colombia getting the better of them once again?
I got to feel like 23 World Cup, maybe Colombia was being overlooked a little bit because they just seemed to catch everybody by surprise. Like it was just like, oh, wow, this they're playing really hard and they're playing really physical. And we weren't quite ready for this. I have to think Germany's one of those teams kind of along with France where it's like, all right, one of these, you know, you just look at the roster. They are always the dark horses, right? Germany and France. So fully knowing that, I'm still going to walk right into that trap and say, I think Germany, maybe could be a little dangerous, put something together here. I would have them getting past Colombia, a little bit of a revenge game. I like that. They'll be ready. They'll have some tape. And then we'll get a group stage rematch, looks like maybe with Germany and the old USA.
There you go. And so second time seeing each other, I wouldn't be shocked if in the first match it ended as a draw.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as long as we're going down the full prediction rabbit hole, I think the States could get past Germany. I respect a lot of the players on the German national team. Obviously, saw a lot of them in the Champions League, and we've got to see a lot of them in Frauen Bundesliga for Wolfsburg as well. But I think the States could probably get past them in a semifinal matchup. So that would likely lead us to play either France or Spain in the final. That works for me because I wanted to make sure that I checked out that we weren't like, I mean, if something weird happens and we have to face Spain because they finished second in Group C, that is worst case scenario, if you ask me. But let's say they play Spain in the final. I am going to predict United States women's national team will be your silver medalists in the 2024 Summer Olympics.
I'd love to have a different take than that, but I think I also have them as the silver. I mean, you look at that stretch, Japan, Germany, Spain/France, or even if it's Colombia would be tough as well.
Yep.
That's just a tough road. And that's if you finish first in the group.
Right.
I think they do catch a break with regard to Spain and France going at each other, but Spain just walked right over France in the Nations League final. I don't expect anything different. They just seem to have their number. I don't think I would pick, in our way too early predictions, I don't think I would pick this U.S. team to get past Spain. So I agree with you. I think silver medal is the right look here.
All right. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. I think at this point of the footballing journey, after you kind of have the reset of the 2023 World Cup, you lose some players who have just aged out of the golden generation, or at this point, it's like the second or third golden generation in the history of the U.S. women's national team. I don't think there's any shame in a silver medal in an Olympics that is this competitive.
Yeah, I think that would be a positive outcome. And to your earlier point about the Japan matchup, if you lose that one, that's one of those where I think the casuals be really upset, but it's a real hoopers no kind of situation where it's like, Japan, that's a tough team.
Team's good.
That's a very losable game.
Yes.
And I think the same with Germany as well. Germany, I think, is actually a sneaky, dangerous matchup. I'm kind of glad that we're going to see that in the group stage because that's a very technical squad and also very explosive scoring-wise. But I think it is a benefit to the U.S. that we will potentially play them twice, group stage, and then maybe in that knockout round.
That is a really great point because you actually could lose to Germany in the group stage.
Very live.
Mm-hmm. And then you kind of get that, okay, now we got the speed of their team. Now we kind of know what to look for in the knockout stage. That could be very, very interesting. So even if they switch sides of the bracket where USA finishes second in Group B and Germany wins the group, you might still see them in the semis. Yeah, that's a great call by you. Germany, I mean, Alexandra Popp up top. You just have a lot of smarts, a lot of skill, and no shortage of toughness and physicality in that team either.
Yeah, you mentioned Alex Popp. I mean, that German team, a lot of good attacking talent that we also got to see a little bit in the Champions League. Lea Schuler, Lena Oberdorf, Laura Freigang, Sarah Dorsoon in defense. I think if she's on that final 18. Froms in goal, backup goal, Katrin Berger, who we've got to see pretty close NWSL. So that is definitely not a bullshit team. Shuka Nuskin, balling at Chelsea, still just 23 years old. That's a real squad. That's a real squad with real players.
And Yomi's a good young player. Oh, hopefully we get to see her. Julia Gwynn. I mean, they got a lot of great players over there. So
Absolutely.
something to be super excited about right from Jump Street. And we haven't even really got that much into the States playing the Copper Queens to start the proceedings.
That's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting. I mean, I think, Zambia left a lot to be desired in last year's World Cup, but obviously they've got those two sticks of dynamite up front, Kundanaji and Barbabanda, and some other really great players as well, Chanda. And I think they're really growing up as a footballing nation. They've obviously got a ton of like bullshit that they're dealing with their federation back home. So hopefully situation improves a little bit for that squad. But yeah, they could be dangerous in a group stage setting where these results matter. You get a Bonda goal, you get a Kundanaji goal in the first 10 or 12 minutes, and they're able to just sit back and defend, and your athletic advantage is, not what it might be against another team like a Japan. That could get interesting as well. This field is just really, really exciting. Going to be a really great tournament. All right, man. I think we thoroughly now covered this USWNT roster announcement. Anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
I think that's it for the U.S. women's national team. The Olympic roster, quick little preview of what we're going to do at the Olympics. We got more stuff coming on the Olympics, by the way. We got, speaking of stars, speaking about a great lineup, we have some absolute stars coming up to join this very program. I don't know how we've talked these people into coming on to our program, but apparently they've seen enough. I mean, look, if Leanne Sanderson is coming on the show, I guess we're certified in some way. Maybe I should stop acting like it's so crazy that people are coming on, but it's hard. It's honestly hard to compute still that people like Leanne Sanderson and Chris Sharples, Cam Pope, Asil Tufayli, like real footballers, like real announcers have come on the show. So let me just say, before I ramble too much, we got a lot of people coming on to help preview the Olympics, to talk about these squads that we've been discussing.
Hell yeah.
Very much looking forward to it.
It's going to be awesome. So yeah, definitely make sure that you're subscribed. It's been another episode of Into the Channel. Thank you for watching, listening, liking, subscribing, chiming in, following. Without you guys, there's really no show, no community, no fun really. So, I mean, you really make this something that's very rewarding, very fun, very enjoyable, and you help elevate the show. I always kind of say that. Our comment section is a very high IQ space on the internet. We talk about real hoopers. These are whatever the soccer equivalent of real hoopers is. All of that is all up in our comment section. We appreciate it to no end. Thank you for rocking with us. If you're an OG, thank you for continuing to rock with us. Remember, like if you liked, and subscribe or follow Into the Channel, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen. Links to all of our socials in our show notes. And a big thank you to my co-host, Mr. Grand Angle, for...
Oh, wow.
Just
what an honor.
In Sharpie, no doubt. That's why we keep the Sharpie on deck, just in case we've got to jot our guy's name down in the book here.
Likewise, buddy. I got you penciled in Sharpie as well, written in Sharpie as well. You could maybe say that we are the Sophia Smith and Trinity Rodman of the podcasting game.
Hell yeah.
That sounds about right. Good speed, good skill, can pass back and forth, can score. You never know. Well, however the podcasting game works. But yeah, like Dino always says, thank you guys for rocking with us. We appreciate you tuning into the show. Hit us up in the comments. Let us know maybe what we missed, what kind of formation you would want to play, and we will see you guys next time.